Backstory. It's arguably one of my favorite parts of Dungeons & Dragons as a whole, but especially in Dungeons & Dragons character creation. Hello everyone, welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. In today's video, I'm going to be ranking every single player character's backstory from Critical Role, featuring campaigns 1, 2, and 3. Just to note, this video will contain minor spoilers for each of these campaigns. If you would like to avoid these spoilers, please use the timestamps listed below in the scrub bar to avoid the spoilers for the campaign that you want to avoid the spoilers for. As always, guys, this video is just my opinion, so feel free to disagree with me and let me know your tier list in the comments down below. You guys know the drill. You know how these videos work. We've done several other Critical Role and just tier list content in general. Click the eye above to check those out. And let's just get into the video, shall we? So you can see we have our tier list. Here we have our tiers: best, amazing, good, okay, and not a fan. We got our characters down below. I've organized them from campaign 1, 2, and 3, as we said earlier. If you want to avoid spoilers for a campaign that you have not watched fully yet, please use the timestamps down below. We're going to start it all off with one of my favorite characters from any of the campaigns, Grog Strongjaw, played by the main man himself, Travis Willingham. Now, when it comes to backstory, I think that Grog lacks a little compared to a lot of these other characters. Grog is one of my favorite characters in all of Critical Role, but I feel like his little mini arc, especially the Kevdak arc, which was basically his only featuring of backstory, while it was epic, super cool, we got a vestige out of it, it interlinked with the Chroma Conclave plot. Overall, in the campaign, it was unfortunate that it felt like it was just kind of a footnote in a greater story. I will say this, I do think that Legend of Vox Machina did a lot to kind of save Grog as a character in Grog's backstory. Click that video if you want to go see my thoughts on that. But I think I gotta put Grog, as far as backstory goes, in good. I really like his backstory, but I do think it's unfortunate that it wasn't kind of more explored over a longer period of time in Critical Role. But unlike some of these other characters, Grog actually got his backstory featured in the campaign, and I really enjoyed it, so we gotta give him good. Next up, we have the twins, Vex and Vax. I'm going to lump them together here, seeing as they have basically the same backstory. Now, the twins' backstory didn't come into the campaign as much, or I guess in the same type of way, as some of other characters in Campaign 1's party's backstory. Remember that the twins are half-elves born with a elven father who lives in Singor and their human mother. They were raised in the town of Byrodin, which was destroyed by a Thordak, the Cinder King, many years ago when they were just children. Obviously, we have the Thordak link into the backstory. The only other real time we kind of see the twins' backstory really kind of touched or played out is in conversations they have with their father in Singorn, which Legend of Vox Machina did an awesome job kind of displaying. I really do like the twins' backstory. I think that it's really cool. I like the family ties. I like kind of the real human elements of it. This idea of a split family and the fact that their dad is a total prick. Ultimately, though, I think I'm going to put them in okay, but I think I'm going to put Vex's in good. Obviously, the backstory is technically the same, right, for both characters, but I think that the backstory overall had more of an effect in character growth on Vex as a character. If we remember kind of Vex overcoming this relationship with her father in her trial to get the bow Fenthris and overcoming all of these kind of deep-seated emotions and issues that she's been going on with. It's just a really cool human story that is very relatable, interlaced in this crazy fantasy world, right? So for that, I'm going to put Vex just a little higher than Vax. Next up, we have Kiki Keyleth, easily one of the most controversial characters, basically in all of Critical Role. I like Keyleth's backstory, obviously heavily inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. Unfortunately, in Campaign 1, Keyleth's backstory was kind of hit and miss. If I'm remembering correctly, we never actually got to see Keyleth finish her Aramente on stream, if I'm remembering right. Obviously, we had it play out several times with, obviously, she went to Pyra, and then we had the whole Aramente with her meeting the water Ishari. There was a Kraken fight, if I'm remembering correctly, and then obviously, ultimately, we had kind of Keyleth's backstory pay off in Campaign 2 with Rumblecust and the discovery of her mother. Very interesting, a character's backstory that kind of went a lot farther than we thought it would have, and ultimately the payoff at the end with Keyleth's mother, even though it wasn't in Campaign 1, was super cool. I'm gonna put, where are we gonna put this? You know, I'm gonna put Keyleth's backstory actually in amazing, having thought about it for a minute. Overall, while it isn't the most important story being told in Critical Role Campaign 1, the fact that her backstory and the mystery kind of behind it and with her mother extends to Campaign 2, and also the fact that Keyleth as a character really is probably the character that grows the most in Campaign 1, and I think a lot of this has to do with kind of her journey for adulthood in her Aramente, and just overall in life as she grows with the party. We love Keyleth here on this channel. Yeah, Keyleth backstory, we gotta put it in amazing, I think. Tyrion Darrington, another one of my favorite characters, obviously Sam's second character in Critical Role Campaign 1. Terry has a very, as well, human kind of story. We're going to put Carrie's backstory in good already. I really, really enjoy it. Terry having this real human backstory with his family, as obviously his father doesn't really seem to approve of a lot of life choices and decisions in the way that Terry lives his life. Terry always looking to kind of find favor with his father, but ultimately at the end he comes to this realization that if his father's not going to love him for who he is, then that's okay. He doesn't need to chase constantly his parents' validation, and I just think it's a good story, man. I love Terry. Terry goes into good. Next up we have Pike, a character that I really, really love, but for obviously extenuating circumstances, Pike's backstory wasn't really super included in Campaign 1 because, well, Ashley wasn't there super often. When I try to think back to Pike's backstory, it's linked in with Grog, which we see in Legend of Vox Machina, but we really don't really focus that much on Pike's backstory all too much. Obviously, there was some interactions with her family, the Trickfoot family, and yes, her relationship with Grog and her link with Grog. But overall, because of extenuating circumstances, not really anything to do with Ashley and just how the campaign went, we don't really get to touch on Pike's backstory, so I'm going to stick her in not a fan, but it's really not anything that has to do with Ashley, or anything that she came up with backstory-wise. There's still so many characters we have to get to. I'm going to start picking up the pace a little bit, I think, here. Next up, another one of Sam Riegel's characters, Scanlan Shorthalt. Everybody loves Scanlan. Scanlan's backstory is also super interesting. Another human element, as basically his main factor in his backstory is all of the womanizing and kind of interesting life that he lived before he linked up with Vox Machina. Even when he does link up with Vox Machina, he still continues to live this life until he is confronted by his estranged daughter, who he didn't know anything about, who kind of sets in on his ways. I really like Scanlan's backstory. I'm going to put it in good. As much as I like the crazy high fantasy backstories, I also really do like backstories that just really you can relate to. The ones that really hit you emotionally in the gut, the ones that just seem so real in how they're played out, and Scanlan's backstory is another good example of this. Overall, Sam is just amazing, in my opinion, when coming up with character backstory, as we're going to see when we discuss his other characters. Finally, to round off Campaign 1, we have the boy, the main man, my favorite character from Campaign 1, one of my favorite characters in Critical Role of all time, Percy Dorolo. Percy instantly has to go into the best. Obviously, he had kind of the first major arc in the Critical Role streamed game with the Briarwood arc, basically straight out of Percy's backstory. Percy having one of the craziest backstories for any character in all of Critical Role, and I think a big part of this is the fact that so much time was focused on the Briarwood backstory, as well as the fact that this whole Briarwood arc with Percy's backstory was displayed amazingly in Legend of Vox Machina. Easily some of the best scenes, animation-wise, and just story-wise, in Legend of Vox Machina come from these Briarwood Percy arc. It's just amazing. We've done several videos talking about this on the channel, so we're not going to go into too other further detail. We love Percy here. What more can we really say? Moving on into Campaign 2, we're going to start with our girl, the badass monk, Beauregard, another one of Marisha's Ray's characters. A huge difference from her previous character, Keyleth from Campaign 1. Beau is another one of those characters that tells a very cool human story. I also just love Beau because I love monks, because I love martial arts, so Beau automatically gets some points from us. My phone is on, apparently. Gotta turn that off. Beau has this strange relationship with her father, and many reasons why Beau is kind of the way she is, why she's so headstrong, so rash, and so rude, is because of her kind of relationship with her family and her dad, the fact that her dad wanted a son, all of these things put together. Beau is an awesome character, one of my favorite characters, and I really do think that her backstory really well informs who she is as a character. Overall, though, it's not the craziest backstory. I'm gonna put it in okay, but this doesn't have anything to do with how much I like the character. Actually, nah. I'm gonna put Bo's backstory in good. It's not the most entertaining, craziest backstory, but I think as a character, Bo really epitomizes the making of a character from their backstory. Every kind of personality quirk that Bo has can be explained through her backstory and her relationship with her family, and obviously her working for the Cobalt Soul. So yeah, Bo, I think we're going to put in good. Maybe we'll change it later. Next up, the boy Caleb, played by Liam O'Brien. Caleb has to go into amazing for his backstory. Obviously, Caleb's backstory is partially linked with the greater story in Campaign 2, his links to the Cerberus Assembly and to the magic wielders in the Dwendalian Empire. Obviously, his links with, like we said, the Cerberus Assembly and all the crazy experimentation going on there. Caleb being kind of a product of this Wolfstrecker program, if I remember correctly. Members of the Cerberus Assembly performing experiments on him and his fellow other classmates, fellow other magical students. And yeah, Caleb's just an awesome character. His story is super tragic, super traumatic, and yeah, it was a pleasure watching Liam play this character out, watching this character grow across Campaign 2. Caleb's story has to go into amazing for me. Actually, now that I think about it, it might go into best. Next up, Caduceus Clay, Taliesin Jaffe's second character in Critical Role. Campaign 2, Caduceus is an interesting character, not one of my favorite characters. Personally, I do enjoy Caduceus as a character, but his backstory was just kind of, for me. To be fair, this might be because in Campaign 2, I kind of went on and off in watching the show live, so I wasn't invested into his story, especially after the death of Molly Mock. To me, I'm going to put Caduceus' backstory in okay. It's cool, I like it. It's got some links into the kind of greater lore, into Critical Role lore, but for me, I just wasn't the most invested in it, so I'm going to put it in okay, which I know is going to make some people upset because people do love Caduceus. Next up, we have Yasha, another one of Ashley Johnson's characters. Yasha's backstory, I'm going to put in good. Obviously, she was raised in this tribe of barbarians in the deserted wastelands of Xhorhas, her eventually falling in love with a woman that she was not supposed to, as they had arranged marriages. Yasha being exiled from her barbarian tribe after her wife was killed. She would leave her tribe, eventually meeting up with the fiend Oban, and we know how the story goes from there. Yasha's story is pretty good. Honestly, I didn't like it as much at the very beginning, but after reading Yasha's Mighty Nine origin comic, I do enjoy her arc overall and how it kind of informs her character and ultimately how it plays into the kind of ending arc there in Critical Role Campaign 2. It's pretty cool. Angel of Iron's arc is pretty cool. We love it when Matt Mercer plays with Betrayer Gods in Critical Role, so I have to put Yasha's backstory in good. I did enjoy it. Next up, Molly. Right away, I'm going to stick Molly Mock's backstory in amazing, a lot of it because there's just so much mystery about it. I mean, literally, there was so much mystery for basically all of Campaign 2. That was a huge part of the greater story of Campaign 2. Just Molly, the Somnovum, Lucian, how everything links together. It was just a crazy story, one that obviously Taliesin didn't even know where it was going when he originally incepted, had this idea for the character. And yeah, it just took off into a story that was greater than what any of us ever could have thought it was, especially Taliesin after he had made this character, and then the character died in the campaign. Just awesome storytelling by Matt Mercer and Taliesin together. Absolutely love it. Molly is a gem. Next up, Jester, another super awesome character that I love from Critical Role. Jester has an interesting backstory, the most interesting part obviously being her relationship with Artagan, the Traveler, and the whole kind of mystery that's going on there. I'm going to put Jester's backstory as well in good. I don't think it's as good as maybe some of the other characters in good, but the reveal that the Traveler was Artagan from Campaign 1, and just the crazy arc that just happened with Rumblecust and everything throughout Campaign 2, I think that Jester's backstory had a lot of impact on her and overall the campaign, so for that, we have to put it in at least good, in my opinion. Next up, we have Not the Brave, or Veth, if we want to call her. We're using the Not arc here. Played by Sam Riegel once again. Sam is like one of the kings of backstories and developing characters in the Critical Role team, in my opinion. I gotta put Not's backstory in amazing. Super cool. The highs and the lows, the plot reveals, the fact that they actually managed to change Not as a goblin back into her halfling form. Just an awesome story. Some really cool, fun fantasy themes being played here as well. We have this kind of link in of real emotional, kind of real human emotions, as not Veth as a character has to kind of deal with this relationship with her family as she tries to return back to her normal state to try to make her family whole. Once again, super interesting, fun character. Like we said, Sam is probably the king of backstory creation in Critical Role for the Critical Role team, in my opinion. So for me, it's got to go in amazing. Finally, our last character from Campaign 2, another amazing backstory, in my opinion, Ford Stone. Obviously, Ford's backstory is linked with the Uk'otoa arc, one of my favorite arcs throughout Critical Role Campaign 2. Ford is one of my favorite characters throughout Critical Role Campaign 2. I love Warlocks. Warlocks are awesome. Probably the best class, especially for RP in Dungeons & Dragons, in my opinion. The amount of RP that you can get as a Warlock with your patron, it's just limitless, and it's super fun, and I love the awesome story that they told here with Ford. I love all the intricate little details, the background as the mystery was unraveled, ultimately with some awesome, really cool payoff. It was unfortunate that this kind of backstory arc wasn't completed in the running of Campaign 2, but obviously they got to it eventually with their special. But yeah, I have to put Ford in amazing. It's only fair. He might even go in best while this is all said and done. Finally, we move on to Campaign 3. I'm going to try to speed up and get to all of these. Just a note, because some of these characters, we don't know all of the extent of their backstory. This is just going to be at the time of recording, which the last episode was Critical Role Campaign 3, episode 52. So keep that in mind when you're watching this now, if you're watching this now like 6 months, a year in the future. Beginning with FCG. FCG, another one of Sam's characters. I gotta put FCG in best or good, amazing, somewhere up here. In my opinion, FCG is an awesome character. We have these links with Ayor from Campaign 2, and I never personally thought we would see an Ormaton as a player character. Obviously, these strange backstory with FCG. We don't know exactly what his original purpose is. There's still so much mystery behind Ayor. Is FCG this crazy assassin bot? We just don't know yet. Personally, I love FCG, I love his backstory, and I think that a lot of characters in Campaign 3 have some very good backstory. Next up, we have Fern. Fern's backstory is also pretty interesting, as she is 1, Ruidus born, 2, she was raised in the Feywild by her scary aunt, grandma, someone who's not actually her relative, but they call her relative, a very scary hag. Because of that, Fern has very strange hag-like proportions, and it's just a very strange character in general. I love Fern. I think her backstory is pretty cool. I like the fact that we actually got to go to the Feywild in Campaign 3 and experience some of it. I'm going to put Fern's backstory... Where are we going to put Fern's backstory? For now, I'm going to put Fern's backstory in okay. I enjoy it, but there's still so much left that has to play out in Campaign 3, so for now, I'm going to put it in okay. I'm curious to know if there's going to be more Fern backstory revealed in the future, but it seems like we kind of gotten everything we know about Fern so far, but hey, I could be wrong. Next up, we have Aurum, a character who suffers for being arguably one of the most bland, normal characters in a party full of absolute kooks. I think that in a party like this that is absolutely crazy, you need to have some relatively more normal figures. I do like Aurum's backstory. I think that it's very sad. I think it's pretty tragic. I like his links with the Arashari, obviously his husband, his links with Keyleth, and obviously Keyleth's links with the overall story of Ruidus, Otahan, and everything that's just going on that we've seen here with the Apogee Solstice. I'm gonna put Aurum's backstory in good, as I do think that it makes Aurum the character that he is, and I think that Aurum's character definitely has a place in this party, as he very much is kind of the grounding rock of a party full of absolute crazies. We'll see. We might move his backstory down. I do like it. Actually, I'm gonna move it down into okay for now, but I do enjoy it. Next up, Chetney, a character that we just don't know that much about so far. I'm gonna put Chetney's backstory into okay. I do enjoy it, but we just don't know that much at the time of recording in Campaign 3. Obviously, we know he's a werewolf, and currently at the time of recording, we are in Uthadurn, so soon I believe we are going to learn more about Chetney's backstory, but just right now, we just don't know enough. So I imagine that this will move up later on in the future if I do this video again. But for now, we're going to put Chetney right here. But that has nothing to do with actually his backstory. It's just that we just don't know that much of it yet. Same goes with our next character, Ashton. I'm going to put Ashton's into good, but we just don't know that much about his character. Obviously, we know the strange situation where he ended up having this weird dunamancy in his head, in his weird glass head. And obviously, we know that there is some other mysteries afoot for Ashton's backstory and in strange links to this ancient druid tribe. But at the moment, the time of recording, we just don't know enough information. So we're going to put it in good for now because what we do know is good. But I think that there will be much, much more of Ashton's backstory that we will see in the future of this campaign. Finally, our last two characters, Laudna and Imogen. Beginning with Laudna. Laudna has an awesome backstory. Obviously, she's very much linked with Percy's backstory, as Laudna was one of the young ladies that lived in the town of Whitestone that was ultimately killed and hung from the sun tree in the kind of faux Vox Machina warning sign that we saw in Critical Role Campaign 1 and we saw in Legend of Vox Machina. This reveal was crazy. Definitely got people to notice and people to take interest of Campaign 3. I think it's awesome. I think Laudna is one of Marisha's coolest characters. She has one of the craziest backstories. Yeah, we have to put Laudna in amazing. I think it's just fantastic. I love Laudna's backstory. I love her links with Delilah, and I can't wait to see what future things are going to pop up with Laudna in her backstory, because you best believe that Delilah is not completely gone yet. Finally, we have Imogen. I think that Imogen has to go into best for me. Imogen's backstory is obviously crazy linked with the events that are going on in Campaign 3 with Ruidus, this Ruidus arc, the Apogee Solstice, Predathos, everything that's going on here. She is intrinsically linked more than any other character in Campaign 3 because she is Ruidus born. She is exultant. She has these crazy mental telekinetic powers. It's freaking awesome. I don't think Laura had any idea just how important her character and her backstory would be in this kind of grand arc of Campaign 3, and we just gotta put Imogen in best. And yes, this is our finalized tier list here for every single Critical Role player character's backstories. Obviously, this is super subjective, and it doesn't have to do with anything of how much I like the character as a whole, more just, in my opinion, how much I liked their backstory and how much their backstory impacted, 1, the game, and 2, the character themselves. Honestly, I think depending on the time of day, I could probably switch a lot of these up, but I do think that, for me, the best, the top 4 there very much are pretty concrete. Maybe some of these from Amazing could move up and down, but ultimately I think that these 4 up here are some of the best backstories in all of Critical Role throughout any campaign. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video, learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. If you disagreed with me on any of these, please let me know in the comments down below. At the end of the day, it is just my opinion, and it is subjective, and I am judging it on the things that I like and criteria that I've made. As always, guys, I hope to see you in the next one. Make sure you go check out some of our other Critical Role tier lists and other Critical Role content. Until next time, guys, stay safe out there. Peace, love, Adu.
A love story that might be. We wasn't supposed to happen. So much talk around us. We became numb to the yapping. It was like 05. Got my license to drive. Picked you up in my pop's car. Went for a ride. Couldn't no one tell us nothing. That night was ours. All the stars aligned and you were so damn fine. Yeah, it was young love.